I think it was John Muir, a Scottish-American naturalist, who said that going outside is really going inside. We have the opportunity to explore our internal landscape while exploring nature. I think nature has always been inside, and we as humans, through our disconnection from nature and ourselves, are outside of the one true world of nature. Being with this mountain, loving this mountain, I feel as if I'm being allowed back inside. Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. This podcast is for and about women of colour and our relationship with nature. Hosted by me, Sheree Mack. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast is committed to exploring the experiences of women of colour with Mother Nature. We want to provide spaces where the hidden voices in the environmental and conservation conversations can explore their relationship with the natural world. Inspired by our time spent outdoors, we amplify the voices of women of colour, our stories, our conversations, interviews, photography, writing, and artwork. We'll be exploring our legacies, histories, and memories which have had an influence and effect upon how we perceive ourselves within the natural world and within the environmental and climate justice movements. Welcome to the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. The Earth, Sea, Love podcast has been made possible by the funding from National Lottery Heritage Fund. Thank you. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Earth, Sea, Love podcast. And this episode is with Tammy Shakur. And Tammy works out in Atlanta, Georgia. And we spend a lot of time in the beginning here talking about spring, because we did record this in March and how there was an upswell of energy, the prospect of spring, maybe getting out a bit more. And we're bringing you this, and we are sort of like midsummer now. Maybe that energy has tapered off a little bit, but me personally, looking forward to summer. But really, summer's with us now, and I'm trying really my best to enjoy these summer months. Resting, taking a break from social media if you haven't noticed, and doing a lot of reading and writing, and definitely leaning into my slow practice. So I wish the same for you, that you can actually find some space in your days, weeks and months to rest. Enjoy your family. Get out there maybe and explore nature more. Tammy is an outdoor experience guide, and we talk a lot about that connecting to nature. Her identity on Instagram is going out to go in. And we explore what that means. And we had that little snippet at the beginning of this show where I feel that nature is inside. Yeah, it is inside us, but actually it's the inside world, and we as humans are floundering on the outside because of that disconnection from nature, ourselves and each other, and going to nature, going into nature. Something that this whole podcast is about. Because once you allow yourself to go into nature, you open up yourself to a whole heap of feelings. You do. You have to be vulnerable, of course, but it just reminds you of everything that you're missing out by not being connected to your body, not being connected to your feelings. And and this is, the main theme that we do explore in this episode. So enough of me. Let's get into it. Welcome to Tammy's episode, and welcome back to the Earth Sea Love podcast. Thanks for being here. Bye for now. It's such a joy to have you here. So thank you kindly.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. I welcome and relish any opportunity that I can talk about nature and community and those things. So thank you very much for even considering me.
Cool. Find out, where are you in the world? And can you see nature at this moment outside your window? Are you experiencing spring?
I am in Atlanta, Georgia, which is the prettiest city in the world, I think, well, in the United States, I'll say, to experience spring. And I could not spend my days if I were not in direct view of nature. So I have the most gigantic picture window facing my desk. So, and this is my little office where I work most of the day. So I am in constant view of nature. I couldn't have it any other way. And we are in the throes of spring here, and it's glorious.
Yeah, I've been enjoying seeing, I think maybe it was just your last post, the idea of was it that you said you can cut all the flowers that you want? Spring is sprung, man. It's coming. We can't hold it back, And that's so sort of like mirrored the way I've been feeling lately, because I've been wintering hard for this beginning of the year. But I'm not sure if when we got into March, I felt this quickening in my blood, and it's almost like, the shifting in the energy. And
absolutely.
My word is slow. So I am doing things at a slower pace than usual. And it's almost this tension within my body of wanting to remain slow, because slow has nurtured me and sustained me, through all that we've been through. And then there's that urge of okay, what's going to happen? They can feel that excitement bubbling. How about yourself? Is spring a favorite season of yours?
I don't think you could have phrased that or described that more perfectly for what I literally have been living the last couple of weeks. It's it's been a journey for me to learn to embrace winter, but when I did, I really have I took myself into those spaces, and particularly coming out of the year that we're coming out of, I have wintered hard as well. So, and I think just as a, collective, we've kind of been forced to do that in some ways, even, factions of us that may not have naturally done that. So I think we were all kind of in that space, but just collectively in the air, there is, like you said, that quickening where it's just like there's something on the breeze that just has you just, I don't know if it's hope or what the feeling is, but it is so jubilant and it's so light and it is just everywhere. So I have been enjoying spring so much, and I know, like you said, there is that desire for us to, or that reticence, I guess, on our part to go slow. We're coming out of such an unknown and unprecedented type of season. It's like, oh, we should go slow. We can't go too fast. I know we're anxious to all get out, but I am just so happy to, even when I go out and I see people starting to, go out a little bit further, do a little bit more. I'm so excited to see people just getting out and enjoying that, and that collective energy that's out right now. So I have really been enjoying it. I'm enjoying seeing everybody enjoy foraying out just a little bit farther and doing a little bit more. So I am really enjoying it in a unique way this year. Spring is always lovely here, but this year feels especially poignant
Yeah.
because of the year we're coming out of.
Yeah, I totally chime with that, because
Yeah.
we're recording this and it's 23rd of March here, and yours obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But it marks the year of when we went into the official lockdown in
Mm-hmm.
the UK. So today's been declared a day of reflection about that year.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a minute silence, I think, at 12 to remember those who had passed and those who, and also to give respect to people who have survived, in a sense. That idea of that spring is here feels so much more this year. And I think it's because maybe there was that fear and thought that we wouldn't get to this point,
Right.
because
Right.
that we've come out of, and I don't want to say dark times, because I don't like the use of those terms in a negative way, dark and black, etc. But we've come
Mm-hmm.
out of traumatic, turbulent, and unknown or
Right.
sort of times. So yeah, I can see how spring is so much more full of hope this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that,
Yes. Absolutely.
what you were saying, and that collective upswell of energy and stretching our legs more, and getting out there. And I was just out this morning, and the number of people who said good morning to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a
Yes.
marked change. Actually
Yes.
making eye contact with me, and saying good morning with a smile.
Right.
And I live in a predominantly white area. I know that looks upon me have been hostile,
Mm-hmm.
or stares even, but I just, and it could also be I'm also reflecting back a sunnier disposition as well.
Yes.
So that could be coming into it. Anyway, I'm
Right.
whittering on here about spring. Tammy,
Right.
you're the
But
guest.
no, that is such an excellent point, because I mean, ultimately we're all just mirrors of one another. So if you are, even if that is all it is, that they're reflecting back to you, your sunny disposition, well, wonderful.
Yeah,
Then that's a gift and a treasure within itself. So
yeah. Thank you.
let that be that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we met on Instagram, and it's your handle is going out to go in, and
Mhm.
I love that. And could you just explain what you mean by that term, going out to go in?
Well, I think it I was drawn to that handle or that phrase because it literally defines or describes how my journey back to myself in a nutshell. I was I'm a runner by nature, so I spent a lot of years pounding the pavement. And I had a very close friend of mine who said, why don't you try trail running with me one day? And she took a group of us out. And I thought, running in the woods, like, what is that? No, Black people don't do that. so so she took us out, and I just like fell in love. It was like a homecoming of some sort that I didn't even know to a place I don't recall having been, but it was such a sense of peace and completeness and home, that I fell in love with that, and I couldn't understand the draw. Like I'd always been super scared of everything. Like I grew up with a parent who was had anxiety, so there was all the things that came with that. So I was always really sheltered and scared of everything. So I was like, why am I drawn to nature and to trails and to the woods and to the mountains? And so it was it struck curiosity in me for a long time. I was like, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? I want to be from that day forward, I wanted to be in the trails, in the woods, in the mountains. And fast forward a few years, not even a few years, shortly thereafter, I went through some various personal issues with my mom, moving into her elder years and experiencing some health issues, and my children leaving the nest and various things. So it was just a season of shedding a lot of things that were very, and some, just other different things. But it was just a real tumultuous season for me, and it was a lot of growth. And I didn't realize that nature was showing up to be that respite for me. Mm-hmm. So that's how I basically moved through the healing process and all of those changes by spending more and more and more time in nature. So and it ultimately brought me back to this place where I am now, where it's this fullness and this, on the path to wholeness. I don't feel like that we ever fully arrived there, but it brought me back to such a place of reconnecting with myself and having worked through a lot of those issues. So that's why I feel I say going out to go in, because going out in nature actually helped me work through and process and do all of that healing work that brought me ultimately back internally to myself, reconnected to myself. And that process is something that I try to share with other women. And that's why I really that's what brought me into the space of bringing women out into the outdoors and helping them make those same connections. Because when I say nature really healed me, or was a big part of my healing journey, it absolutely was. And so that's where the handle came from, going outside to go in.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. And again, I'm just sitting here and I'm nodding my head. That idea of journeying back to yourself, that homecoming, and to moving towards wholeness. And I totally agree that there's no end point here. It's a constant becoming. And it's how I know personally that and I don't want to say use, but I would say in the first instance, there was a using of nature to just go out to be in nature as you say, to heal, or just to switch off, or to just get away, basically, to have that headspace. And it was from continually doing that practice, that it got to that point where, being with nature, I was so much of myself, but also not myself. Right. All those identities fell away, and I was just a body breathing with nature. And that, I think, did heal me, but got me to the point of realizing that we are one, we are totally connected. So when you're saying, for me, going out to go in, yeah, I totally get it. Going out into nature to get into ourselves. It's that internal landscape being out in the external landscape. But there's this also this concept that and it's difficult to put into words, but it's that idea of nature is inside. Nature is the world. That is the only world, nature. And we as human beings are actually outside of that because of that disconnection that we have with nature.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Does that make sense to you?
It totally No, it when I say it makes so much sense, I always say helping people or helping other women reconnect to nature, because the we have always been connected, but we have gotten disconnected because of, our lifestyles, or all the different things that come along and tell us, like you said, all the roles and hats that we put on. And that was a really big one for me when I started to fall in love with the outdoors, and I would invite other people. And there's a broad range of ways that we engage with nature. But I am African American, I'm Black, so I my community is Black. So one of the most immediate challenges that I ran into when I was inviting people to get outdoors with me was this prevailing belief that, Black people don't go in the woods. We don't do those types of things. So that is just an example of how our life experiences and the things that we've gone through and the histories have helped to foster that disconnection. So I totally agree with you. It is a reconnection to nature at every opportunity within every person, because we are nature. We are so intrinsically connected that anytime we are able to get out in nature, there is, and it's something I hear repeatedly when I take people out. They're like, this is wonderful. Why don't I do this more often? Or I feel so good. Or it is because you are coming back to your home state, because you are nature. Nature is you. And what we need to work on is breaking down that disconnect and reconnecting, because it's our natural state. Absolutely. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you. And, so you've mentioned you're a trail runner and hiker, and you've also touched upon it being an outdoor experience guide, particularly for women. So we've got outdoor experience guide, and that experience, because I mean, I know I'm taking women out, or I have been, to have experiences, because I've mentioned that idea of going out to nature and to using it. So a lot of the time people engage with nature like maybe to run, maybe to surf, maybe to do things like outdoorsy things, climbing and that sort of thing. So when you're saying these outdoor experiences to engage more people like yourself, Black, brown, indigenous, etc., with nature, what do these experiences entail?
So it can be a variety of different things. That is one of the wonderful things that I had to that was part of my own growth journey in terms of being outdoors. Again, having been a runner for so long, that was how I got outdoors. So that was the context of getting outside, was running. And as I started to fall more in love with nature, and I'm very passionate about, so out of my passion for running, I would invite other people to, come and run with me. Well, then you learn that not everybody loves to run, which is how I ended up hiking, because it was so much easier people were more apt to join you to hike, because I mean, that's typically within most people's scope of ability to be able to get out, and depending upon the trail and the accessibility, they're able to get out and walk with you. And in the walking with women, what I or in community with other individuals, what I learned was that I just saw the layers of people would start to peel back. The conversations would be so rich, and people would really peel back to the layers, to the most vulnerable of themselves, and have conversations where, you would find out that someone's, oh, well, my mom is ill, or this is what I'm going through, or, this is something I've been, it was just such a peeling back, that slowing down, and really just letting nature be at the center, and it really was just us walking and talking that really made me start to look at all the different ways. There are so many different ways to get outside. So we have done, typically my experiences, so what I've taken from that was to really put nature at the center of our activities, as opposed to what that activity looks like. So it could be, I will offer experiences where we are just hiking, we're walking. Sometimes it's a breath walk, or it's just maybe our theme is, it's a gratitude walk. We're going to walk and think about and reflect on those things that we're just so grateful for. It could be yoga outdoors. It may be meditation. So it can be a variety of different experiences. I try to bring a little bit of some different flavor of activities, just because I know everyone's entry point into the outdoors may look a little different, or what may draw them into the outdoors may be a little bit different. But at the common theme is that nature will be at the center of all of those activities. We're going to center nature, and we're going to center healing, and we're going to center wellness. And we do that through our conversations, those intentional moments that we build in to really focus in on nature, or, make that connection. So it could be a variety of different things, always keeping nature at the center, and keeping centering our healing and wellness in those activities.
That's lovely. Yeah, thank you. And, no way was I disrespecting experience, because that, for me, that's a gateway. It's to just spend that time in close connection, in relation with nature, in a safe way, with others
Right.
around you, so you are feeling more safe to be out there. And it's just, as you say, centering nature, breathing with nature, just walking with nature, just taking it in through our bodies, through the senses, because that's how we gain or develop that relationship. And once we've got that relationship, what follows is caring, loving, and wanting to step up more to protect and call out things that are happening within the environment and nature. So it
Absolutely.
with those experiences, because that's the thing that has been lacking, those day-to-day, just normal experiences in the landscape. And it's
absolutely.
It's such a simple thing, but there's so many barriers in place that stop us as Black and brown people from doing it. And in the UK, we have our own set of things which might be historically or culturally the idea that we might have come over here from being immigrants and leaving behind our countries that were in rural, and it was a case of like, coming to the mother country, you go into an urban center because that's where advancement was or is. It was build the bright lights, big city, and you can get on, you can get the job, get the house, and get the education for your kids. And all backs were turned on, the relationship with the land and just traditional knowledge about plants that would be used for healing or food. It was disvalued. And I do think we were sent that message that it was backward and savage even, it's a case of like, more civilized, you have to be moving away from the land. And that is such a
I know. I say all the time, I'm like, one of the great tragedies, I think, in that in us moving away from nature is such a teacher, and there are such lessons there that if that disconnect wasn't there, I wonder how much farther along we would be as a collective. I was out walking with a group, and there was a young lady, and she noticed, in the flowers, and we use that as and I use that as an entry point to start talking about, you walk into a garden and there's 500 different flowers. And we want it to be that way because we want to see all the variety, and we delight in every different flower. We don't expect all the flowers to look the same. We expect them to look different. We study them. We want to know all the different, there's a whole science around studying all the different flowers and all the different, but then we disavow differences in people. It's like, there are so many lessons in nature and things that we appreciate in nature that we, if we, with the moving away from our living so close to nature, those lessons and those things that we could learn and take into our experience, we're just so disconnected from them. And, that I just thought that was such a beautiful, moment that we had there where we talked about how we appreciate the differences in flowers, how we look for them. But in the same vein, we look at humans and we want anything that's different, any, culture that's different. It's and that's strange and that's foreign and to be disavowed or just, and that saddens me. On some days it enrages me, but there's so much richness and lessons that we could be taking from nature, but we just live so far from it now.
What you just said there has reminded me, because recently I'm a writer in residence in one of our national parks, and they sent out, I was going, oh yeah, I am, but out a press release just last week, and of course they put it out to social media outlets, and one of the social media, somebody had responded and was saying, well, I hope my membership to this certain trust isn't being used to pay for these residencies, because I'm paying to protect wildlife, not to fund any in it, and these were in inverted commas diversity projects. So I had to get back on, and I didn't raise the question, are you a bot? But I did reply saying, I'll pass on your regards to the trust, saying how, that you're really happy with your membership. And I was saying how you are actually funding all of our biodiversity. The idea that he could see, or he was willing to pay for that diversity within nature, within wildlife, to protect it, but not have that money used for diversity of his fellow human being. And so I'm just thinking that man does not even get that lesson from nature. I was just saying, it's like, obviously then, I say obviously, I'm making a judgment here, but maybe he is of that population of white man who colonialized and imperialized and used and abused and took away from other lands and other people resources for that personal gain. Yeah, the idea that I'm paying for wildlife diversity so I can walk among it and then enjoy all these different flowers or wildlife for my personal enjoyment and nothing else.
Right.
No connection.
How about that?
Yeah.
No connection. No real connection. There is no, that's the opposite of connection. That is, like you said, that's just, no.
But again, I have to come back out and not fighting, but come back out with love. That's where my source of energy and power comes from. It comes back out with love. And I can have that anger and I can have that rage, but then it just tips over and I think, oh, I feel sorry for you, man.
Right.
You're missing out on so much by having such a narrow mindset.
I know that's almost the double-edged sword, I say sometimes, of awakening and elevating your consciousness, because then you really understand when people think like that and when they lash out, when they're angry and they say mean and hurtful things, you have a sense of compassion and empathy for them, because one, what they're missing out on, what they're disconnected from, and you probably have some insight, maybe from your past or lived experiences, as to where that is all coming from. So you can't, like you said, you can't even really hold anger for very long for situations like that, because you have a awakened or a heightened sense of understanding there. So it's you live in that duality of compassion and certainly sensing and feeling and being aware of injustices and things like that, but then you teeter back over to compassion and empathy, because you know where that all comes from. So sometimes that's it's one of those where it's like, I don't want to feel compassion and empathy in this moment, but you just kind of it's what's the price you pay for heightened for ascending, I guess is the word.
As you've mentioned, the idea that after maybe a turbulent time in your life, being invited out into nature by running, and how you felt that it was healing to you. There's, a traumatic experience, maybe that was. I'm not asking the details of that. I know for myself, I had traumatic experiences what have led me into nature. But once I've explored that area, what also comes into play is, well, has it always been a disconnection for me? And if I look back into my childhood, I can see moments where that I did connect with nature, even if it wasn't in an urban setting. So I'm asking you, do you feel that at some point within your childhood or within your family upbringing that you might have had some connection with nature, or some invitation to experience it in some way through your family or your upbringing or your ancestors?
Yeah. And that's I feel like a big part of that, like I say, coming back into myself and this when I first started to engage with nature, like feeling this sense of homecoming that I wasn't like, where did this come from? I don't know what this is. And as I spent more time in nature, I did remember, I mean, we spent our entire, I'm a child of the 70s, so we spent our entire childhood, like you, outside was where it was at. I mean, like you couldn't, I don't even think we were allowed to stay in the house. You had to get out. We would spend our days, all the, Saturday mornings, the neighborhood, all the homes would empty, children would run out, and it would be bikes and it'd be popsicles, and it would be bare feet all through our little water passageways. It was an urban area, but urban in South Louisiana, I put that in quotes. It's not, what you typically picture for urban, but it wasn't a rural area. So I feel like we were probably one of the last really free generations where we spent all of our time outdoors. And it wasn't, on trails or mountains or things, but it was nature that was accessible to us. And it was I just remember the joy and freedom of that time of just being outdoors and never wanting to be inside. It was a punishment to have to stay inside. So it was reconnecting to that space. And then the other piece of that, you mentioned ancestors. I'd never really thought about the fact, another aspect of this burgeoning passion with nature was just rediscovering, and I'll say rediscovering because maybe I shouldn't say rediscovering. I'll say discovering a love for plants, growing plants, and it wasn't until I'd been doing that for a while that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, my mom, like she, and my grandmother, they would have all of the, they were always puttering around in the yard and growing something and this, that, and the other. And, they're parents, so you weren't paying much attention to what they were doing or, all the little things that they had growing around the house. But I'm like, oh, this is what my mom and her sisters and my grandmother, this was something they were very passionate about, growing things. So it all felt like I'm coming full circle back to those, to how I grew up, being outside, feeling that joy and freedom of being outdoors, and then seeing the women in my life nurturing plants and pouring their passion and time into that, just to brighten the little spaces around our little tiny homes. And we never had huge grand homes or anything, but there was always something blooming around the front door or growing along the side of the house. So it felt, it absolutely felt like coming back to some things that I had forgotten I even had in my, background.
Bountiful in a sense, and so rich. It is growing up or being part of the societies that we're or in or under, that that childhood and that connection through working through the system and getting older does get suppressed and forgotten, as you said.
It does.
And it's almost like layers of skin rather than coming off is just like put on top of each other. So we become almost numb. It is that disconnection, but from our surroundings, like we can't feel it anymore. We can't experience it. We can't let it in or take it in. And that's a sorry case of affairs. But I can't stay in that mindset long because I think, well, you know, I'm awake now in that sense.
Right.
That awakening is like, oh my gosh, I can feel things again. I can have those sensations, those tingling sensationals again. It's back. It is back living in your body. That's what it is. It's back living in our bodies after being so long about just living in our heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Outdoor experience guide for women. And we've explored why this is important, I think, so that we're out there with people that look like us and experience, you know, in the world in similar ways to us, basically. So there's that collective togetherness and safety, etc. But while you were talking there, when you're saying that all these experiences, nature is at the center. You're centering nature, wellness, healing. And I know we need these spaces, these exclusive spaces, because we're not experiencing black and brown, not experiencing nature and the environment. But while you're talking there, I'm thinking, and you know, I'm not coming up with any new ideas. I don't think so. Some people could well do. But I was thinking about, why can't we, I mean, this is an idea I'm putting out there, but having these spaces where it's a mix of black and white people together, and it'll be experiences in nature, but it's also there as anti-racism training or education. The idea that when we are out there, we have so many open and honest conversations with each other, that I would just think it would be a good idea to have these conversations with some people who are struggling to recognize humanity in Black people. Do you know what I'm saying here? And I'm putting it out there as an idea, you know, because I think what you're doing with being an outdoor experience guide is trying to bring about change.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see what you're doing is bringing about change? And how are you projecting into the future or moving forward with plans and thoughts about how to continue bringing about change? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's a beautiful expression of what you said. When I initially started leading experiences, it was exclusive to I was just leading communities of color, black people in particular, in outdoor experiences. When I decided I wanted, and those spaces were co-ed. There might be, you know, family groups. It could be, you know, men, women. They were really open to anyone, because I do think nature has healing benefits for everyone. I mean, and even if it's not healing, it's just for general wellness and fitness. I've always thought that those helping people foster that connection to nature in all of its different whatever that looks like, and in every demographic and cultural group, I think that there is value there. And when I decided that I personally really enjoy this energy of being in spaces that are just women. So I exclusively lead events now, or experiences with just women. And when I started to do that, it was not just for communities of color or Black people. It was, my events were very culturally diverse. And it was for that exclusive purpose of, I feel like, and I think I said it earlier, when people are out in nature, it peels back the layers of them, and you are able to see the humanity and the interconnectedness of everyone. And people are more apt to have more vulnerable conversations. And there's just something about nature that fosters an environment of truly seeing people, really seeing people through a different lens, really seeing them outside of the this is someone who just loves nature, just loves being in this space, and you just love, there is a peeling away of all of those things that we think divide us. So I've seen that happen. I've experienced it. I love creating spaces for that very specific purpose, that I feel like that is where in nature is where some of the purest connections happen between human beings. We strip away all of those layers, and we really, I see connection happen there that I just don't see in other spaces. So I totally agree with you, that that is, and ultimately that is my purpose when I take women outdoors. Where I am currently is that, just because it has been a really challenging year, particularly in terms of the area of social justice, and obviously the pandemic being the over our theme there, and all of the impacts there, specifically around impacting communities of color. The value of what I call affinity spaces, spaces where I can be in that space, and I can be in a community that looks like me, that has that similar experience. There's a special way that communities like this hold me, hold us, that give us space to just be and have that collective understanding of, this is something that is impacting me. I say all the time, and this is not to discredit connections that you can have with any other culture, but there's just something about when I look over at a Black woman, sometimes there are just things I don't even need to say.
Yes.
She knows it. She absolutely feels me on a cellular level, where words don't have to be part of the expression. And so I believe that affinity spaces are absolutely necessary, because they hold us in a way that other spaces don't. And it allows us to unfold and be held in a way that we may not necessarily be able to do. So I don't think one is better than the other. I am comfortable in both spaces. I think, like you mentioned, having those diverse spaces, it is absolutely, I say that we all have a charge in our life, and it's going to look different for everybody else, but we are all charged with what I call pricking the consciousness. We are all charged with having in our own way, pricking consciousness of the people in our sphere of influence, those people that are that we become connected to, or we cross paths. It's not by accident. There is something you are supposed to get from me, and I am supposed to get from you, and I'm supposed to use what I have to have that impact. So for me, my love of nature helps me to hopefully, I hope that it, in creating these spaces, my purpose, my goal is to create spaces where you see my humanity, I see your humanity, we see the beauty of nature, we love and care for nature, and we love and care for each other. So I agree, totally agree with you that that those spaces, those diverse spaces are important. That is where I see my gift in those spaces, and my offering, the way I serve the collective, is that I want to foster spaces where we see the humanity in each other. But I also want to, I do see the value, and I will always hold space for Black women, because I think we need those spaces where we can just be held by each other.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm totally with you there, Tammy. Totally with you there. And on that note, I just love that, you just brought that, and that idea that we're all uniquely charged to prick the conscience of somebody else. I love that. And I've never heard it described like that, but I totally get that.
Yeah. I have had people impact my consciousness in ways that it could have been something as fleeting as had, people who cook in a certain way, and seeing, the way that, certain cultures, they cook and they use their hands, and something in the way I saw this community use their hands to cook. And in my culture, maybe we don't do that. In the
Mm.
South, it's about a super clean kitchen and we don't do this and all the rules. But seeing communities where they use their hands to make food and they hand it to you, and there's something about them saying, I made this for you, and that I see the humanity in them and the beauty in, you made this for me with your hands, and I'm going to take, like, so it's that's why I said we're all tasked with whatever our gift is, or our offering, to prick the consciousness. And for me, that was that always sticks in my mind, because I grew up with such rules around cooking and how things needed to look. For
Mm.
somebody to make me something, the sustenance for my body with their hands, it just made me look at how, it changed how I viewed how food is prepared, and how food can be a love offering, and a way of connection. And so in all the different ways, you don't know how some simple thing that you do is going to radically impact how somebody views humanity.
Yeah. I must say, what a gift it has been talking to you today, Tammy. It really has.
I feel the same way. This has been soul food.
You said it, man. You said it. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for your generous spirit. And I'm so grateful that you are out there charging others. Yeah. Because that's what you're doing. You are a gift and a blessing to others. And I thank you. All right. I thank you for being
I
part of
thank
this.
you for elevating the stories that you do. It's beautiful, and I love seeing, again, all the different ways that everyone is using their gifts and their beings to have their impact in their little areas of the world. So thank you for elevating and highlighting these stories.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. But yeah, the podcast is nothing without you and fellow guests. So thank you. Thank you.
All right. You enjoy the rest of your day, and
You
you
too.
take very good care, and keep enjoying spring.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, take care. Bye
All
for
right.
now. Bye.
Bye bye.